The Phantom Train. Evan Thatcher, a historian with a penchant for the forgotten and the mysterious, finds himself standing alone on an old railway platform in the dead of night. The station, long abandoned, is quiet, shrouded in a dense fog that's thick enough to feel like it's clinging to his skin. This place shouldn't be unsettling, he tells himself, but something about tonight feels different. He's here to document an old station, a piece of history that will soon be bulldozed and erased from memory. But as he waits, something strange happens. From somewhere down the track, he hears the low rumble of an approaching train. Impossible, he thinks. No trains have run on these tracks for decades. Yet, through the fog, he can just make out the distant glow of twin lights cutting through the darkness, growing brighter by the second. And then it appears, as if from another time. A sleek, silver train pulls into the station, its carriages polished and pristine, every detail seemingly untouched by the years. Evan can't look away. He knows he should stay put, wait for his friend to pick him up, but something about this train calls to him. Before he realizes it, he's stepping toward the doors, drawn in by a strange, almost magnetic pull. Inside, he's struck by the elegance of it all: rich, polished wood paneling, lush red velvet seats, and lamps that cast a faint, ghostly blue light across the narrow aisles. There's a feeling of stepping back into a forgotten era, a place out of time. But the passengers, they're the strangest part of all. They sit quietly, some clutching old-fashioned items, a pocket watch, a weathered letter, a faded photograph. They barely speak, eyes fixed ahead or glancing around with expressions that flicker between sorrow and fear. As Evan takes a seat, he attempts to speak to the man across from him, but the man only offers a distant, half-hearted smile. Just as Evan is about to give up, an older woman leans toward him, her voice a soft, anxious whisper. "You shouldn't be here," she says. "Unless, well, you have unfinished business." Evan frowns, unsure of what she means. "Unfinished business?" She nods, casting her eyes down the aisle. "This isn't a normal train," she murmurs. "This one collects those of us who made wrong turns, left things undone. People who walked away at the worst possible moment." Her hand trembles as she clutches an old locket, her knuckles pale. "This train gives us one more chance to make things right, to finish what we started. If we fail, well, we stay here, forever." A chill runs through him, but he can't help himself. "What happens if you stay?" She looks at him with weary eyes, full of regret. "Then you become part of the train, just another passenger, bound to ride these tracks in endless circles."
Evan's mind races. "Unfinished business." The phrase rattles around in his head, sparking an old memory he's tried to bury. Years ago, he'd been close with a friend named Julia, someone who'd always been there for him. They'd had a fight. He can't even remember what it was about now, but he'd walked away, too stubborn to hear her out. A few weeks later, she'd been in an accident, and she was gone. She'd been trying to tell him something that last day, something he'd brushed off in anger. And now, all these years later, he's finally realizing the weight of that moment. As the train barrels forward, Evan feels the walls closing in, the air growing colder, heavier. The conductor's voice crackles over the intercom, announcing they're approaching a stop. In that moment, he understands. This is his one chance to make amends, to finally listen to what Julia was trying to say. He doesn't know how, or if it's even possible, but he knows he has to try. The train slows, the blue lights casting eerie shadows across the passengers. The doors hiss open onto a scene that looks familiar and strange at once. It's his old neighborhood, but not as he remembers it. It feels like a memory, hazy and distorted, and standing on the platform, he sees a figure he recognizes immediately: Julia, waiting, her face filled with that same hope he'd ignored years before. Heart pounding, Evan steps off the train, knowing he has to face what he walked away from long ago. If he doesn't, he'll be bound to this train forever, another soul lost in the fog, condemned to ride a journey that never ends.